Hey everyone, welcome to Intentional Guy, and I am here with my friend Maurice Smiley Harris. So, how you doing today, Maurice?
I'm all right. How you doing? How you doing, Michael?
I'm I'm doing good. So, it's a funny story how me and Maurice know each other. Kind of funny,
Yeah,
maybe
it's
not.
really hilarious. I think it's gonna be funny. Hopefully, viewers have a sense of humor.
Oh, they do because it's all about God's grace, right? It's all
Absolutely.
about God's grace in life, and I worked at a prison here in Florida, and Maurice was an inmate there. Correct?
Yes, absolutely.
How much time did you do?
I did 6 years and 10 months. I was sentenced
Six
eight
years.
years.
6 years and 10 months. And
Mhm.
so Maurice has written a book here, and it's called Sideline, and that's why I asked him to come on here. But there's a couple other reasons why I asked Maurice for you to come on here too. Okay. Um, Maurice was one of those guys who stuck out at at the prison because of your attitude. That was one of the things that I liked about you was your attitude. You made every moment of your stay there, um, from my perspective, count. You know,
Mhm.
um, I didn't see a bitter Maurice Harris there. I didn't see someone who was uh, people don't understand unless you've worked or lived inside the walls of a prison, uh, the chaos that you have, but also the negativity that there
Yeah.
is there. So it's easy uh, to get depressed, and it's easy to get bitter, and that's on both sides of the aisle. That's
Yeah.
as an inmate there, and then even as a staff member. I realized after, you know, I worked. I had a 10. I had a 9 year sentence. Is what I call it. I had nine
Yeah.
years that I worked there. I started off as an officer, but then I became the transition teacher, right? And as a transition teacher in the state of Florida, uh, before inmates are released, they got to go through 100 hour class with me. So that's where um, what I did towards the end before I left. But I didn't realize until I got out of there how negative it had made me become, you know, and I have found pure joy getting out of there. Now, I cannot imagine as an inmate in there what freedom must have been like that day you walked out of the prison. So can you tell me a little bit about that?
Um, the day I walked out, I was planning to walk out because we once you get your release date, it's not like fast. All right, you in, day out. It's a whole process that you have to go through. Had to wait for hours. Just waiting, hoping that the people that says they're going to be out front, you hoping they're out front for you, and then you just you got to give away stuff. Everybody, other inmates that's not going anywhere, they walking by you like, wait, what you doing? What you doing? What you here? What you doing? And I'm like, oh, I'm about to go home. And they say, what? So you kind of on the defensive there, even there, because some people get catch envy and may try to do something to you,
Mhm.
especially just being around them for so long. It's like you don't want no one to be jealous and things like that. And it's like, I'm leaving. I did my time. And that's one thing that we always just say, I have my time and you have your time. So I did my time, let me go. Right? When you do your time, you can go. So that's what the waiting game, just to get outside that fence. That was something.
That was
And
probably
then
the longest part of your sentence, wasn't it?
yes, it was very long. But once I got out, I saw my mom My mom came, my sister, well, three of my sisters, and my nieces, nephews. They came. That was good to see. My dad and my granddad was there. So that was great. It was great to see them. I didn't see them in a while, even before I got incarcerated. So that was a great thing. We went out to eat and talk and things like that, and that was a good time for me. Great time.
Yeah.
Just to be free. I bought some clothes. Because I got out with some Crocs. So so
Yeah.
I bought some clothes and some shoes and stuff like that, and it was an exciting time. And it just was, really, it was just time to, figure out what was next. I savored the day that I got out, but then it's time to, you know, start a new journey in a sense.
Exactly. Time to start a new journey and move on. Um,
Right.
Let me ask you how, and I'm not, I'm not uh, exaggerating when I say you had a great attitude while you were incarcerated. How did you maintain that? How were you able to do that?
Looking back, I would say that the people that I kept myself around, the people that I kept myself around, and it sucks, but I did it for a reason. I did it like I had most people that was around me had more time than me. They had way more time than me. So those are the most. It seems that they wouldn't be the most positive people, but they are the most positive people that have life sentences, 20 years looking ahead, and things like that. They're the most positive people that I saw in prison that has the most time or has done the most time. So that's who I kept around me. They kept me encouraged, and just kept and looking at them and seeing how happy they were. I was like I'm about to get out. Even the first day, like, okay, I got 8 years, but these guys got 20, 30 years. You know what I mean? So how can I be mad and bitter and angry about that? And don't get me wrong, my first year was terrible. My first year, I got I did 10 months. 10 months. My first 12 months, I did 10 months in solitary confinement. So I
Oh,
had
really?
right. So that was another thing. I don't think I put that in my book, but yeah, that's something that I had to go through, and that's I have to make that that statement because that did a lot to me as well. Those 10 months of solitary confinement, I read a lot. I really found myself at that time. So that was another thing that really affected my positivity because I did go through the bitter stage. Not saying that I didn't. I went through the bitter stage,
Yeah.
but people didn't see that. You had people, officers that monitored, confinement and everything. So they saw it, how bitter I was, how mad I was, angry. But I still tried to joke and stuff back there. But it was a hard time for me because I couldn't wrap myself around that I was in prison and I was in prison for 8 years. So it took a toll on me. So I had to jump out of that because I probably wouldn't have made it out if I wouldn't have.
And I can't imagine if you're given a sentence like that, what that first year's like, because that seems 8 years. That's not a short period of time.
No, no.
So that would play with your mind quite a bit in there.
Hmm.
Um, so I can't even imagine how that had to affect you mentally and emotionally in there. So I think what you're expressing uh, would be a common. There would probably be something wrong with you if you weren't bitter a little bit.
Right,
You know.
right, 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 right. Yeah,
You
and
know.
and the thing too is, and that's another reason how I got through it is putting stuff behind me. Saying I have to, looking ahead and not looking back. So that's kind of what I was just about to do. I was about to look ahead. So, oh yeah, got all these people around me, all this, and these people got all this time. But then I had to think about it, like, whoa, what about that time? You know what I mean? What about the
Yeah.
time that I mean, so I really had to think about that, and it's like I did have some hard times that I really didn't express like that, and I put behind me, but I will always remember because that was like an enlightening point,
Right.
enlightening. stage of my life that I needed. It was very necessary for me to do. So that's kind of what kind of brought me into my self again, because yeah, my nickname is Smiley, so I stayed smiling and stay enthusiastic, charismatic, and things like that. But at the same time, at that moment of time, at that first year, I really couldn't understand how people say I'm such a good person and shouldn't have did this, shouldn't have did that. Why am I, in these bars? Why am I behind the door? So it had me to really contemplate everything and think about like
Yeah.
why, and answer that question and ask that question.
Yeah. Well, and the truth is, there's a difference between staff and inmates that I saw, and the number one difference was, you got caught and we didn't on some things.
Mm.
Sometimes the keepers were not as good as they should have been there, right?
Oh,
But
correct.
but what I like is your attitude about that, because you can't move forward if you're still hanging on to the past, right?
Mhm. Correct.
You can't. It's just impossible to do. Now, Maurice has written a book called Sideline, and I want him to tell us a little bit, but I don't want to give away too much of it too, because I want you to read a book. I actually have not. I've skimmed a little bit of it. His book is actually. I have. Uh, I now have 12 books this year that I want to write, and yours is one of them. In fact, I'm reading one right now, and then when I get done with that, I'm going to be reading yours. And I'll be honest with you, after I read it, I want to have you back on the show, because I know I'm going to have all these questions for you. But why don't you tell us a little bit without giving away everything? But I do know that you're a football star at some
Well,
point,
yeah, I was right.
and you seemingly had the world. You're at the top of the world, you know, and then you're at the bottom of the world, you know,
Mhm.
and so just tell me a little bit about your book. What Tell us, reader, what should they why should they read Maurice's book?
Um, it's a book about yeah, everyone. I believe everyone has been sidelined in a point of their life. I've been sidelined many times that I can point out, and that's one of the things that the book start off how the severeness to seriousness of being sidelined and how to get out of that, and what you had to play. Like we talked a little bit about not looking back and looking forward. Like if I look back and say, okay, I'm on top of the world, I'm on top of the world, and now I'm in prison and I still have that mindset, that right there, you have to change that mindset. You have to realize and what's really going on. You have to catch up with reality and say, okay, yes, I climbed Kilimanjaro, but now I'm at a certain age, my knees hurting and everything like this. I can't do that anymore. So now you gotta kind of lower your standards in a sense. You can still climb a mountain, get on top and get up, get on top and still celebrate it. But at the same time, if you at a point of your life that you can't climb this Kilimanjaro, you have to lower your standards. And that's kind of what it is in life. Some things you're not going to be able to do because that time has passed. Not meaning that I mean you can't accomplish goals and you can't make goals, but you have to kind of make different goals to still accomplish them so you can still seem successful in
Yeah.
your life. And that's what kind of this book is talking about. Is it's about a book of redemption of yes, I fell off a mountain, but I had to get up. That's life. You got to get up and
Yes.
you have to find another mountain. You got to find something else to keep you pushing forward, to keep you going and keep you encouraged to live this life and live it to your highest potential. And like you said, be intentional with what you're doing, So that's kind of what it's talking about. And that's a good connection with sideline and being intentional, because you have to be intentional because you're a sideline, because probably I don't think I was intentional at the time. I was just living life, playing football and doing whatever I can do to be celebrated by others and things like that. But I didn't really focus on what I wanted myself, so
Yeah.
that was a huge problem in my life.
Yeah. And that's a huge problem for a lot of men today
Mhm.
is because I look around, I call them zombies. We have a
Mhm.
lot of zombies out there because
Oh,
you
absolutely.
look at them, they don't have any purpose. And
Mhm.
I can say that because I was one of those men.
Right.
And I didn't end up in prison, but I surely could have. And the thing is, when you aren't intentional with your life, life's going to keep going. You're going to get up that day and you're going to life's going to happen. And you can either plan, make a plan to be successful, or you could fail the plan and not be successful because the
Right.
world's going to move on. And what happens is when I'm intentional, I act on it. When I got a stupid cat in here, my wife's cat that's trying to get into pictures here. Sorry about that. But when I'm intentional, I'm taking action, right? But if I'm not intentional, I end up going off of feelings or emotions, right? Which can lie to you. And then we act out sometimes where we normally wouldn't had we had better self-control in the situation, right?
Right. Correct.
And being intentional also helps me to discover who I am as a man. And I think that's a lot of problem that a lot of men have identity issues right now. They don't know who they are, you know?
Mhm.
So they're out there just floundering and want to know why the world is passing them by. And we saw it in prison all the time too. Um, Guys who would get in and out, in and out, in and out of prison, and they just kept doing the same thing over and over again. Didn't understand why they were still in prison. Well, because you haven't changed nothing.
Right.
You know, you're still going
Mhm.
out there and doing it. So uh, it's a great point that you bring out with that. Now, you were a football star, right? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I started playing football. I believe I was like 6 or 7. So that's something that just grew onto me. I always was athletic. So like that's some of my books talks about of my mom. She had high expectations, and I always listened and just wanted to do right by my mom. So and that's kind of how everything grew, and just being active at that time. Like I had like what they call HDHD. Now I don't know if it's true or not, if it's a really chemical imbalance or whatever. But I couldn't stop moving and whatever. So I went out the door and played. And I don't really see that much these days. Kids going out and playing and stuff and expelling the energy they have.
Yes.
That's something that kids have. You have energy, so you want to go do things and do things with that energy, even if it's mentally, physically, whatever. So that's what I always went. I did athletics and did sports, and that kind of helped me grow to a collegiate athlete. So and develop to a collegiate athlete, and that's basically my story. And I always, even like I said, I put myself around certain people that I can learn from, even in prison. So they knew about prison, so they taught me about prison. That's the same thing with sports. I put myself around other athletes that gave me things that I needed to do. Like I remember, and then going into the ninth grade, some 12th graders, 11th graders, they told me, they was like, man, you in the ninth grade, please don't mess up your grades, because you're going to need your grades if you want to go to college. So, and if you want to be eligible to play football. So that's something that I did, and something I held on to even in college, of not messing up my first year, making sure I excelled my first year so I don't have to worry about it the next 3 years. So um, that was something. And even my brother, he played with me, or I played with him, his junior and senior year. So I looked up to him a lot. So he showed me a lot of ropes and showed me how to be a leader and really get after the ball, because I played defense. So um And that's about it. And like I said, or like he said, I don't want to give away all of the book. You can look things up and purchase the
Right.
book. We got to advertise that.
Yeah, we
So,
want you to purchase this book. Now you did what you did play though for Florida State University, right?
yes, I
And
played, but
what years were that? Some of these
I
people may
went
not
in.
remember you.
Yeah, I went in 2007. I graduated high school 2000 June 2007, and I enrolled in Florida State in August 2007, and I graduated. Well, I got injured. I got injured. I think March. No, actually August 2009. I got injured. August or September. Then I called it quits in March 2010. Then I graduated in August 2010.
Okay.
Um, yeah. So I got
So
injured.
where I'm going to put a link when I put this up for them to go get your book,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not expensive. It's like $18, something like that.
1899. Eighteen ninety
Eighteen
nine. You can
ninety
get it
nine.
from Amazon. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'm gonna put a link on there for that, and I'm gonna encourage each one of you uh, to read it. I'm gonna be reading it this next month. Maurice, will you be happy to come back after I read it
Oh, absolutely.
um,
Absolutely.
and let's talk about it, and maybe we'll have some viewers that will want to ask you some questions as
Mm-hmm.
well. But before we wrap it up today, I want to ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Uh, there's a lot of guys who, well, getting out of prison. Let's start there. We know a lot of people getting who I. It's amazing the position that I had at the prison. I do hear from guys on Facebook. They'll look me up who were in those classes of mine or saw uh, something in me and have reached out to me since they've been there. And I know that some are going to be watching this right now, some who will be getting out. But then also, it's not just about guys who go to prison. There's a lot of guys who are in prison themselves in life,
Yes.
right now because they're not intentional. Um, they're sidelined, but
Right.
they're it's self inflicted. You know. Um, so closing out, what advice would you give to all these guys?
Advice. So I went back. I got to go back to. Um, my life was kind of. I was pacified most of my life, playing football. So I was took care of by my mom. Then I went to college, so I'm took care of by the university. And then, once the university was over, once football was over, I really didn't have any direction. I couldn't find anyone. And that's what, kind of led me to prison. And it took me going to prison to really realize, kind of my purpose. I mean, my purpose, my strengths, and you don't have to go to prison to do that. So my advice is to kind of find yourself, find and remember I told you about them 10 months. Them 10 months I prayed 5 times a day. I got on my
Right.
hands and knees and prostrated myself 5 times a day, read the Bible and everything, and I found purpose in my life. And that's kind of that's the ultimate mentor. God is the ultimate mentor, and that's kind of, I believe, who I found. And that kind of
Yes.
gave me direction. And I feel as though, looking inside ourselves, we have all the answers because God have gave us the answers. I mean, we have to look inside ourselves and try to get, separate ourselves from the world, in the sense, because if we let the world guide us, we always go astray. You know what I mean? So
Yes.
that's one thing that's my advice. Do not get, too distracted by this world, and really get into yourself, into your creator, and, ask these questions, and, the questions, and realize what you want, to how to be intentional. And sometimes it takes a mentor. And I believe a mentor, for any aspect of life is necessary, so I
Yes.
believe that's what I will, suggest. And that's my advice to anyone.
Yes, I totally agree. You have resonated what my ministry, Intentional Guy, is all about.
Mhm.
Just in that few words. That's what we've been trying to get out. And like you said, you had to learn that going to prison, but not everybody has to learn that lesson
Right. Don't.
that way, because there's probably not a day go by that you wish you would have learned that uh, before then, because that would have saved you a lot of time and a lot of heartache, right?
Right.
But
Absolutely.
but we take where we are, and that's the nice thing with God is He takes us where we are, and no matter where someone might be in life right now, today is a new day. And
Absolutely.
today you can start making better choices and doing it. And you gave a great example of how to do that by finding someone who's successful. And that's what a mentor is, someone we can mimic and follow and see what
Hmm.
they're doing. So find someone who's successful, you know, and that emulates what you want to be, and rub elbows with them, because they're
Right.
going to, you're going to learn then some. You can't help but learn some good things from that, correct?
Correct. Correct.
you know so Maurice, I am so happy you came today, that you're on the show today. I'm going to be reading your book. I want to encourage all of you guys um, to do the same. So we're going to do this, and then actually I've got two other buddies that I'm going to be putting this on. We're doing a podcast right now. I'm Intentional Man on uh, my devotion I wrote, but what I want to do with them is give this book to them, and I want to do a whole episode where we discuss your book a little bit too, because your
Okay.
life kind of intrigues me, because I watched you.
Right.
You
Right.
know, you're not just some stranger I'm having on here. Every day that I walked into that prison, I saw Maurice, you
Hmm.
know, and I saw your attitude, and you lived it. You know, you took the worst possibility in your life, and you made choices to make yourself better. And that's what it's about. A lot of people are probably sitting somewhere where they don't like right now. Doesn't have to be prison, you know, and it's all about the choices and decisions that we're making right now. And like you said, they're sidelined in the game of life at the moment. And how do
Right.
we undo that? So I recommend that you read Maurice's book, look at it, and I'll definitely put the links in there. Do you have any last thing to say before we sign off?
No, that's about it. I appreciate for you inviting me and everything. I truly appreciate it, and thank you very much for the
Hey,
exposure and stuff.
hey, thank you. You're a great, terrific guy, and I appreciate everything you said on here. So
Okay.
everyone, go read his book, and until then, we'll see you.
All right.